All right, so we are starting. Today we'll be having a look at introduction to Nigerian tax. What are the things we'll be learning on this? We'll be looking at what is the meaning of tax and how is it different from the word taxation. We'll be looking at it to trace briefly history of Nigerian tax system, look at the sources of Nigerian tax laws, that is the laws that we have in Nigeria relating to tax, the Personal Income Tax Act, the Company Income Tax Act, the Stamp Duty Act, the Value Added Tax Act, the Petroleum Profit Tax Act, and quite a number of other forms of these taxes. How and where did they get their origin from? We look at the structure of the current Nigerian tax system. We consider the benefit or importance of tax. Does this come with any benefits? We have review of these in the course of this section. We will also look at the distinction between tax and levies. What are the differences between tax and levies? We'll consider that too. We look at the essential features of a good tax system, classifications of tax into direct and indirect, what makes a direct tax, and what makes an indirect tax. We will look at the multiple tax. What do we mean by multiplicity of tax? Then the nature of multiple tax, forms of multiple tax, what are the things that causes multiple taxations? Then we finally round it up with various questions and answers. So as much as possible, just as we have done in the session we had on financial reporting, as well as that of the auditing, we want to just not make this as dry as possible, but we want to make it to be as practically insightful as possible. So join me on this train to a very enlightening section on taxation. I want to be double sure that I'm not just speaking to myself. If you can hear me very well, please indicate yes on the chat box, please. All right. Thank you. So we are good to go. So let's start with, when you hear of the word tax, what does it actually mean to you? How do you think, or what do you think is actually the meaning of tax? I'm sure the word tax is not new to anybody at this level. What does tax mean to you, and how is it different from taxation? Anyone? What is the meaning of tax to you, and how is it different from taxation? Use the chat box. Okay, Khadija said, taxation is a compulsory charge imposed on a citizen of a country. Okay, how is it different from taxation? How is tax different from taxation? Anybody? Okay. Okay, somebody just said it, taxation is a process or art of imposing tax. Okay, okay. Very good. Is tax the same thing as levy? Tax and levy, are they actually the same? Tax and levy, are they actually the same? Damilola is saying that taxation is the system by which taxes are collected by the tax authority. Okay. Is tax the same thing with levy? Are they the same? Okay, what is the difference between tax and levy? What is the difference between tax and levy? Anybody with any idea? What's the difference between tax and levy? All right, so sit back and listen as we go. We're starting now. So this page or slide actually explains the very reason why we are doing this. We actually want to bridge the knowledge gap amongst fellow professionals. And this will take the next 10 to 12 weeks. This is actually the first week. I hope you'll be consistent and you will not just let the learning stop at the end of each section, but taking it further to making further findings and possibly engage your fellow colleagues at work, at home, or even on the WhatsApp platform created for this purpose. I wish you a very enlightening session today. All right, so many scholars over the years have given different meaning to the word tax. People in different perception of different background have defined tax in their various ways based on their own exposure and understanding. However, in simple terms, tax is a compulsory contribution. Why is it compulsory? It is not optional. The moment you have met the condition of being exposed to that process, you don't have an option but to pay. So tax is a compulsory contribution imposed by the government. That is the second attribute that makes tax compulsory. It must be collected by the government. It must be collected by the government, not a private entity. This process must be managed by the government representatives. So tax is compulsory contribution imposed by the government of a nation. So it is not what you pay in the church or what you contribute in the church or the mosque. What you contribute in the church or the mosque is not tax, because one, what you contribute in the church or mosque is voluntary, right? If you like, you may contribute. If you like, you may not contribute. But what we call taxation must first of all be compulsory. It is not optional. Two, the agent of collection must be the government. And you can tie that agent or government to a defined geographical territory, that is a nation, right? So imposed by the government of a nation on incomes, that is, even though you are eligible to paying tax, but if you did not make a taxable income, you will not be expected to making such compulsory contributions. So we need to watch out for all of these when we are talking about tax. And some of these attributes actually differentiate taxes from levies, right? Levies, you may be liable to making certain levy or paying certain levy even when you have not earned an income. But as far as tax is concerned, there must be that compulsion, whether you like it or not. It must be collected by the government. And that government must be traceable to a particular country or state within a country or local government within a country. And it must be related to the income you have made or the profit that have been earned or services that have been rendered or properties of an individual or that of a incorporated entity, trust or settlement. So all these features must be evident when we talk about tax. All these features must be evident when we talk about tax. So if you are with me, can you reiterate some of these features that we have highlighted? What actually makes tax tax is, number one, there must be that compulsion, right? It is a compulsory payment. Two, it must be collectible or payable to the government. Three, the government must be traceable to a particular country or state within a country or local government within a country. Then taxes must also be tiable to the income you have earned, the profit you have made in business, the services you have rendered, the property you own as an individual or as an incorporated entity, or to a trust or settlement. So all of these make up the unique attributes of what must be identified as tax. Tax can also be said to be a form of payment imposed on resident and non-resident individuals carrying on business within a defined sovereign state. So that will lead me to asking this question: who actually pays tax? If you are resident in a country and you make income in that country, are you liable to paying tax? If you are resident in a country and you don't make payment, you don't earn income or profits or render any service in that country or have any property in that country, do you pay tax? If you're a Nigerian, resident in Nigeria, but you make your income not from Nigeria, but from, say, Ghana, are you liable to paying tax? So these are part of the practical issues that I'll be looking at today. I will expect you to take notes and ask questions where relevant. So I will point out certain salient points. One of them is, who is regarded as a resident in Nigeria? Anyone who lives in Nigeria for a defined period is said to be resident in Nigeria. Anyone, whether a Nigerian or a foreigner, who is living in Nigeria for a defined period is said to be resident in Nigeria. So my first question is this: how many minimum period must you spend in Nigeria before you'll be regarded as resident in that year? How many period must you have spent in Nigeria before you'll be regarded as a resident in Nigeria in that year? Any question? Any response? Somebody says 12 months. Oh, that may not be correct. That may not be correct. It is not 12 months. By your response, you are implying that if somebody do not reside in Nigeria for a complete 12 months, does it mean the person, even though he or she makes income in Nigeria, does it mean the person will not pay tax? That is not true. The correct answer is you must have spent a minimum of 183 days. So that 183 days rule is applicable, whether you are a Nigerian or you are not a Nigerian. For you having reside in Nigeria for a minimum period in a particular calendar year, for a minimum period of 183 days, you are liable in Nigeria in that year. So what that technically means is that if you have spent a minimum of 183 days, but you did not earn income in Nigeria, you did not render any service that will attract you or expose you to making profit in Nigeria, you did not render any service that could open you to some incidental income in Nigeria, you did not own any property in Nigeria, either as an individual or as an incorporated entity, even though you fulfill the first condition, you may not be liable. Please take note, because in the course of our work, in the course of our engagement with clients, in the course of our encounter with the tax authority, there might be need for you to put forward some of these defense, and you should be able to actually make your submissions very clear. This 183 days rule, where was it actually gotten from? Where was it actually gotten from? The 183 days rule, where was it actually gotten from? You will get to know that as we go on. Because in tax, we don't do anything without paying due or giving due cognizance to the relevant provisions of the tax laws. So we get to know as we go on before the end of the semester, what actual section of which particular law talks about the 183 days rule. As tax consultants or accountants, you are not only expected to provide answers to pertinent questions in tax, but you must be able to tie that pertinent response to the relevant provisions of the tax law. That's what actually makes you a professional. So now we urge you, just as I emphasized during the accounting class, that you cannot do or make a substantive or a representative financial report without knowing the requisite or the relevant provisions of the legal framework, of the regulatory framework, or even the accounting standard that could have impact on your presentations and disclosure. So also is in taxation. You need to marry your various provisions of the tax laws to the case at hand and be able to substantively defend that. That's what actually makes you a professional. So I will hope that during this particular mentorship semester, and even after it, you will make that discovery nature or a new nature of yours to better serving your employer and your various clients. So that being said, the process of collecting or collection of tax from taxpayers can be described as taxation. So we can see now that while tax is what you pay, the process of administering it is called taxation. And those who pays the tax are called the taxpayers. Those who administers the tax are called the tax administrators. Because in Nigeria, we have 3 tiers of government. That is the federal government, the state government, and the local government. Each of these tiers of government have their own respective taxes they have been enabled to administer as contained in the relevant sections of our Nigerian constitution. That being said, it also means that each of these tiers of government have their own respective tax administrators. So I want to ask, who is the tax administrator? Who is the tax administrator for the local government for the collections of the relevant taxes? Who has the answer to that? Who is the tax administrator, or what is the tax administrator at the local government level? What are they called? Tax administrators at the local government level, what are they called? Local Government Revenue Committee. Correct, Danjuma, that's very good of you. Adetunji, also very correct. So the tax authority at the state level, what are they called? Tax authority at the state level, what are they called?
State Board of Internal Revenue.
That's awesome. Who make the response? What's your name, please?
Esther Ajubi.
All right, thank you very much. State Board of Internal Revenue, is that what you call it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if we have 36 states in Nigeria, aside the FCT, the relevant tax authority that collects taxes in Abuja is called what?
FCT IRS, Federal Capital Territory Internal Revenue Service.
Okay, what about the one at, let's say, Kano?
Kano State Board of Internal Revenue.
And of course, that of Lagos.
Lagos State Board of Internal Revenue, or Lagos State Internal Revenue Service.
All right, so why am I emphasizing this? I'm emphasizing it because each of the states in Nigeria has their own respective tax administrator. So in Lagos, we call it the LIRS, that is Lagos Internal Revenue Service, right? So what about the arm of the government that act as tax administrators for the federal government?
FIRS, Federal Inland Revenue Service.
Okay, that's very correct. Odeyemida is also correct. So please, you need to know the differences between each of these tax administrative arms. Very, very, very important. Now, let me put up this question again. What is the difference between the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the Federal Board of Inland Revenue? What is the difference between Federal Inland Revenue Service and Federal Board of Inland Revenue?
The Federal Inland Revenue Service represents the authority or relevant, while the other one is for the state.
I didn't get you very well. You're a bit cracking. Your voice was a bit cracking.
I said the FIRS, Federal Inland Revenue Service, represents the federal government relevant tax authority, while the other one is for represents the states internal revenue.
No, that is not very correct. Francis said the board is the decision-making arm. Very correct. FIRS is the administrator of the tax. Okay. But the right thing for you to just say is this: the executive arm of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, or the Federal Tax Authority, is called the Federal Board of Inland Revenue. That is the group of executive or individuals that manages the affairs that administer the strategic focus of the service is called the Federal Board of Inland Revenue. So the people that makes up this board, they are not the regular staff of the FIRS. While the FIRS is the real administrator, the Federal Board is the executive arm of the service. They are not usually the regular staff of the service, but they occupy that role on a political appointment terms, right? Can somebody emphasize what are some of the responsibility of the Federal Board of Inland Revenue, FBIR? Can somebody give us, because these are all the things we need to know. What is, can you state any of the functions? Please make sure you are not going to checking the internet. Give me at least one major function of the board, Federal Board of Inland Revenue. Recruitment and discipline, very correct, absolutely correct. Danjuma, thank you very much. So they are the one that actually administer the day-to-day affairs of the service. They handle recruitment, they handle discipline, they handle promotional issues, staff affairs, and all of that. And they are always there for a defined period of time. Who is the current FIRS chairman? Who is the current FIRS chairman? Mohamed Nami. So is Nami a member of the board or a member of the service? Is Nami a member of the board or a member of the service?
A member of the board.
A member of the board. Technically, he's a member of the board, right? Though he acts on the instruction of the presidency in administering the service, right? I hope that is noted. Very key. Now, let's water it down a little bit. And let's take a typical example of, say, for the state, LIRS. The head of the LIRS is who currently? The head of the LIRS is who currently? Ayodele Subal, that's very correct. Is Ayodele Subal, okay, before we get there, what is the executive arm of the LIRS called? What is the executive arm of the LIRS called? What is the name we call the executive arm of the LIRS? The executive arm of the LIRS is not State Board of Internal Revenue Service. Correct. Lagos Board of Internal Revenue, or you simply call it Lagos State Board of Internal Revenue. So that is the executive arm, and the head of that board is the executive chairman, who in person is Ayodele Subal. That's very correct. So let's go on. Please, in the course of your work, make sure that you pay attention to all of these details, right? You need to know not only how to do the basic computations, but you need to have a good understanding about the structure of the tax system, whether at the federal level, at the state level, or at the local level. You need to know what are the taxes that are collectible by each of these arms. Why are they responsible for the collection? What is the law that actually empower them to be able to collect these taxes? And you need to have a good understanding of the relevant provisions of each of those tax laws, without which you can't be identified as a sound tax practitioner. Please, you need to have a good understanding of this. We may not be able to capture everything within the limited time we have for this section, but we will always draw your attention to areas you need to go and make personal study on. All right. That being said, the taxation we have, or the tax practice we have in Nigeria today, how do we get to where we are as we speak? How do we get there? Where is our history from? How do we come up with the relevant provisions of the tax laws? What is the source of this? So we can trace that to this. The Christian in me makes me identify that even the word tax and tax was actually paid in the Bible. And I believe that my Muslim brothers and sisters also share the same view. So narrowing this to Nigeria, the history of taxation in Nigeria can be traced back to the 1890s, before the Northern and the Southern Protectorates were amalgamated by Frederick Lord Lugard in 1914. That is, before the southern part of Nigeria and the northern part of Nigeria was amalgamated, that is, was combined together, there has always been a culture of taxation, right? Prior to the colonization of Nigeria, there have been various forms of tax introduced by various kingdoms, ethnic groups, in the forms of compulsory service to the community or jurisdictions, contributions of goods and money to the community. So you will agree with me that prior to this particular structured tax system we have, Nigeria very much practiced something similar to a communal system, where everybody had to make contributions to the common purse, right? Can you identify some of those taxes or tax systems that you are aware of in those days that are not prevalent now? What are some of those taxes that was paid prior to colonization, before we have this structured tax? What are the taxes you are aware of that was payable in Nigeria from our history? Anyone? Do you have any idea before we make mention of them? Okay, somebody just made mention of cattle tax. That's true. Which other one? Oh, Odoyemi, can you tell us about the AVET tax? What do you know? You can enable your mic if your area is not too noisy. What do you mean by the AVET tax? There is Zakat. Okay, I think Adeyemi is having technical issue. He couldn't talk where he is. But the AVET tax is very similar to what we call the Shakole. We have Zakat. Aina, can you tell us about the Zakat? If your area is not too noisy, you can simply or quickly enable your mic and tell us about Zakat and how it was being practiced. Aina, are you there? Okay, Ahmed, you made mention of Owori. Can you quickly enable your mic and tell us about it? How was it practiced then? Yeah, I know, I'm aware that Zakat is still practiced till date, but tell us about it. What is it? Not everybody actually understands it. Most people just read it in book that there is a form of tax we call Zakat. Can you enable your mic and tell us about this? Or are you shy? Okay, I know it's shy to talking, so we have to go on there. Oh, really? You're actually shy? Okay. Okay, so Adeyemi said the villagers give certain portion of their early yams, early farm harvest to the obas of the land. That's very correct. That's what we call the Shakole or the harvest start. So these are some of the tags that are traceable from our history. So in my presentation here, I did make mention of the administration of all these forms of tax were vested in the hands of the obas, the emirs, the head of communities. These taxes include what we call the zakat, made mention by Aina, but she was shy to explaining how it is being practiced. Shakirat also mentioned the Kudi Kasa. Shakirat, can you tell us about the Kudi Kasa? If you are not shy, enable your mic and quickly talk. Most people on this platform are shy. Why? Okay. All right, so the zakat levied on Muslims for educational, charitable, and religious purpose. So it is a form of tax that is usually payable by the Muslims, not just everybody pays zakat. So Shakira is saying Kudi Kasa is paid by land users. Okay, that's very correct. So next on my slide is Kudi Kasa, a form of agricultural tax payable on land utilization, which is similar. So which is similar to the present ground rent. I'm sure you are aware that even in Lagos till date, ground rent is still payable. All right, so Oshodi, thank you very much for your contribution. He said, zakat is portion of income earned by individuals to particular person. Okay, thank you for your contribution. So we've been able to identify quite a number. We've identified zakat, we've identified Kudi Kasa, we've identified Ishakole, which somebody called the harvest. This involves contributions of farm produce or products as forms of land tax in exchange for the use of the land of agricultural or for agricultural purpose. We also have what we call the war tax. This is payable by a vanquished community to the victorious community after a war. So where there are battles or rivalry between different communities, and one actually conquered the other. So the conquered entity or community would then be subject to the victorious ones, right? And they are expected to make their contributions. All right, so those are some of the ones within the limit of the time that we have that we can identify. There are quite a number of them. I will urge you to make more research, but that is not the main area of attention. During the colonial era, various taxes were imposed on citizens, individuals, and corporate bodies through promulgations of laws by colonial authorities. So there was a time we moved from our traditional taxes to promulgations of law made by our very colonial masters then. However, for the purpose of ensuring uniformity in the system of taxation throughout Nigeria, the colonial government introduced what we call the Reisman Commission in 1958. So the Reisman Commission is just a form of policy that actually helps us to harmonize our tax contribution to a particular post from where it is then shared. So it's a body set up to harmonize income tax laws in all regions of Nigeria, right? And what we currently practice in Nigeria is still similar or draws its origin from the Raisman Commission enacted in 1958. Please mute your mic if you are not enabled to talk. Please mute your mic. Let's try as much as possible to avoid distractions. So these tax laws proposed by the Raisman Commission were later incorporated in our 1960 Constitution. Like I said earlier on, if you see the structure, the mode of operation and administration of our current taxes, it is actually similar to the concept introduced by the Raisman Commission. And all of our tax laws derive their origin or their legal persons or existence from our Nigerian Constitution. Therefore, if you see any tax that is currently being administered that is not traceable to our Nigerian Constitution, such tax is illegal. So this led to the promulgation of the Income Tax Act, Management Act in 1961 and the Company Income Tax Act in 1961. It may interest you to know that what you call the Personal Income Tax Act today was initially known as Income Tax Management Act of 1961. These legislations were later repealed, so Personal Income Tax Act in 2004 as amended. Before that very period, it has also been amended as we speak today. The latest amendment that was made as per the act itself was in 2011. While with the event of Finance Act, there have been amendments in 2019, there have been amendments in 2020, and the very recent one was done in 2021. That is a Finance Act. But that Finance Act actually is not limited to a particular form of tax. It actually addresses or make amendments to various forms of taxes and revenue collection vehicles by the federal government. So we have that of the Personal Income Tax Act, and we have that of the Company Income Tax Act. These are not all about the taxes that is collectible in Nigeria. As we go on, we'll be mentioning more of them, such as the Value Added Tax Act, the Stamp Duty Act, and quite a number of them. So that is just what we need to know about the brief history of our Nigerian tax system. The things we've been able to identify thus far for the benefit of those who just joined us, we've been able to identify the fact that tax is not the same with taxation. The process of collecting the tax is taxation. What you actually paid, which is compulsory and it is collectible by the government, and it is subject to you having earned an income, earned a profit, or in the course of the service you have rendered or the property you've owned. It is important for us to stress here that even a day-old baby, provided it can be identified that there is income attributable to that baby, may be liable to tax. Our tax law is without respect of any person nor age. The primary condition to be fulfilled, whether you are liable or not, is if it can be established that you have earned a taxable income. Then the government will come after you and you don't have an option but to pay. But how to pay, what to pay, the mode of payment, and every other salient point about the tax process or management process as contained in our Paul, why are you doing this? Please, let's as much as possible try to avoid distraction, please. So we have said that about tax and taxation. We've also been able to trace our history of taxation, identify some of the very common taxes collectible as zakat, kudi kasa, war tax, shakole, and quite a number of others. We've also been able to link the tax administration, the traditional tax administration then, to the colonial period, and what gave rise to what we call the Reisman Commission in 1958, that our Nigerian constitution draws its origin from, and by extension, translated into the various tax laws we have in Nigeria today. Having said that, what are the sources of our Nigerian tax law? I need people to contribute. Oh, somebody is raising hand. Francis. Rafi, mute your mic. Samson, you raise your hand. What? Do you have a question? All right, let's go on then. Okay, it was a mistake. Go ahead. Okay, we can go ahead. So having said that, what are the various sources of our tax law in Nigeria? Can we contribute? What are the ones you know? What are the various sources of our Nigerian tax system or the tax laws in Nigeria? How do we come about what should be the content of these laws? That is what we mean by the sources of our tax system or tax law. Okay, somebody just mentioned the common law, court ruling. Okay, judicial precedent, that is the same thing as court rulings. Okay, correct. What are the other ones? What are the other ones that you know? What are the other ones? Decree, okay, good. Yeah, laws made by the military is said to be decree. If it's relating to tax, it becomes a certain decree. Very correct. What other ones? Constitution, yeah, you're very correct. Thank you, Balogo. All right. Yes, some of our constitution, our tax law actually is traceable to the English laws too, okay? You're right, decided case is the same thing as judicial precedent. All right, thank you very much for your contributions. So let's start it. So I put it as the very first one here is the case laws. Oftentimes without number, there are instances whereby assessments were raised or demand notice were raised on certain taxpayers, and they, for one reason or the other, objected to it. Eventually, it gets to court, right? Decisions made by the court are called judicial precedent, right? Meaning that as at the time that decision is made, it becomes enforceable on similar cases of similar methods, right? So some of our tax laws are actually traceable to various case laws that has been made. Now, our point of focus in this section is not just to talk about all of these things theoretically, right? As tax consultants or tax practitioners, whether in practice today or we soon start practice in future, it is important you have good understanding of various case laws relating to personal income tax, relating to company income tax, relating to stamp duty, relating to various other forms of taxes, whether value-added tax as this case may be. It is not enough for us to know that case laws or judicial precedent is a source of our tax law. More importantly, we need to be aware of cases that are similar to the ones we are handling, or similar to cases that are, that are very much similar to what our clients may be facing. If you are aware of this, it gives you an insight about how to defend your clients, right? Let's say, for example, there was a particular case that came up a couple of years ago about whether the government has rights to collecting stamp duty, or I mean, whether the state government has a right. Okay, let's even cite the one that is very close to us in Lagos. Very of recent, Lagos State came up with what we call the sales tax, or what they call the consumption tax. I think the right word was consumption tax, right? And that particular tax law, the consumption tax law in Lagos, it was actually challenged in court. As we speak, that case is still in court. And whenever in law, whenever any case is disputed and is currently being attended to in the court of law, what it technically means is that administration of that particular law should be held at constant. It means there should not be further collection until when that decision is actually upheld or overruled, right? So that means that if you have any client in Lagos, as we speak, on whose Lagos State has raised consumption tax on, the very best way to addressing the case with the state government is get a copy of that particular proceedings in the courts that actually hold that form of tax at status quo, right? So these are one of the ways that you should know how to address the various concerns you might have in the course of the discharge of your work. You should not just leave these to the lawyers. Partly as tax practitioner, our work look or appears very much like that of lawyers. So you need to be aware of various cases relating to personal income, relating to company income tax, relating to stamp duty, relating to consumption tax, relating to value-added tax, and other forms of taxes that your clients may be exposed to. Without your sound understanding of these, you may not be able to defend your clients appropriately. So we have learned two things. One is that case laws is a source of our Nigerian tax law. The second is that having good understanding of relevant cases of these laws that is related to the concerns we have at work in respect to our services to our client or our employer. So you can then predict what would be the outcome. Do you have a defendable case on the allegation that any of the tax authority has brought before you? If there have been cases decided in the past that actually hold that form of tax at status quo, or actually jettison or withdraw that form of tax from being further administered, then you can leverage on those decided cases as a way to objecting to the outrageous or unreasonable assessment from the various tax authorities. All right, somebody is just asking that, does that apply to VAT issue that state is challenging? Technically, yes. Technically, yes. Technically, that is so, because until when there is a clarity on who should actually administer those taxes, technically it is expected that nobody should pay VAT indefinitely, right? But you know, we are in an environment where very, very little regard is paid to our various court proceedings, right? There is also a negligence on the side of the court, because in my own view, because of the dichotomy in because of the lacuna in the tax provisions or the tax laws, it is expected that the relevant competent courts will have made an accelerated judgment on that tax case, right? Because it further confused the tax-paying public. But technically, ask any lawyer, they will tell you that when there is a case that is being disputed and is currently being administered in the court, the best thing is that everything should remain at status quo. And what is status quo is that they should stop the administration of that tax until when further clarity is being obtained. All right, so that's what we need to know about the case laws. Then the next one is a customary law. So most of these tax that we pay today, actually, particularly as relating to the personal income tax law, actually is traceable to our custom. It's traceable to the then ishakole that we do pay. It's traceable to the zakat that we do pay, and it's traceable to other form of agricultural or land taxes. So we are saying that what we have as our tax law today, some portion of it were actually drawn from our various customary laws. Then we have what we call the statutes. The statute law. The statute law are the various legislation, tax legislations made by the legislatures in Nigeria. So these are laws pronounced by the national and the state assemblies, bylaws imposed by the local government. This legislation confers necessary powers on the taxing authority to imposing taxes on citizens. So it is on this submission, on this premise, that in my own professional opinion, I resolve that the issue of the VAT, since there is a dispute between who should be the rightful collector, and from all indications, every finger is pointing to that judgment may likely be in favor of the state. I think until when clarity is actually given, that particular form of taxes should be suspended. But why we didn't have it suspended is that, one, VAT is a major contributor to the total tax revenue generated in Nigeria. And because of that, a lot of people will not want to do the right thing. But truth be told, the right thing is that tax should be stopped while the court accelerate their judgment to ensuring that we have clarity on that. That is the right thing to be done. So other forms of the sources of our Nigerian tax law is the Finance Act. Of course, everybody has been aware. The Finance Act provisions is as old as our Nigerian constitution, but not until 2019 that this particular tool has been used. And from then, you notice that every year there has been this consistency on the side of the government, ensuring that the right thing, amendments, corrections are made to our various tax laws. Of course, we've also been able to identify that the Constitution is also a very relevant source. All of our tax law got their origin from the Nigerian Constitution. Of course, we also have circulars issued and practice of the tax authority. Please, circular issued by the tax authority is not a law. But our point is that when there is need to make needful adjustments, this may be a way or sources where extracts can be made to making amendments to our tax law. Then we have budgets and pronouncements of relevant ministries and agencies. This is also not a law, but it could be a source where adjustments or amendment could be made to our various tax laws, particularly where a new forms or streams of taxes were identified, and law can quickly be made to addressing or administering that. Then opinions of tax experts and authors. That tells you that you and I also have influence on what actually makes its way into our tax laws. So we need to consistently and regularly participate through the right podium so that we can make this impact as impactful as possible. Then the next thing is, we've talked about the sources of our Nigerian tax law. Another thing we want to look at is the structure. What is the form of our current Nigerian tax system? What is the form or the structure of our current Nigerian tax system? Basically, it is just three. We have what we call the proportional tax system. That is, irrespective of who you are, how much you earn, we pay, or everyone should pay equal proportion as taxes. That is what we mean by proportional tax system. That is, if you are rich and you make 10 billion naira as your income, and somebody else is an average income earner, he makes 1 million naira. What is proportional is equal percentage of the amount earned as income, right? So that is what is deemed proportional. Do we practice this in Nigeria? I'm sorry, it is capital letter no. Progressive tax system. Progressive tax system means that this is a system where tax charge increases as income increases and vice versa, right? So it means as you earn more income, you should pay more taxes. This is what is actually obtainable in the UK tax system, right? The richer you are, the more you pay. And the poorer or average income you are or you earn, the less you pay. So that is what that means. We have made mention of the proportional tax structure, the progressive tax structure, then the regressive. Unfortunately, what we do in Nigeria is the regressive. If you look at the proportional percentage of what an lower income earner pays as tax in Nigeria is far higher than what the high income earner pays as taxes. Unfortunately, our Nigerian tax system actually encourages the rich to evade more tax while forces the poor to actually pay more tax. So unfortunately, we find ourselves here, and that is why we think that potential contribution of taxes to our national purse could have been much more if this loose end as a structure we are practicing is being amended. So having said that, the next thing we should look at is benefit and importance of tax. But before we get to that, let's quickly do a brush through. I just want to be double sure that everybody is carried along. Where do we started from? We started by differentiating between what is tax and how is it different from taxation. We identified that while tax is the actual payment you made, which is compulsory, it's not optional, and it is collectible by the government and is subject to you having earned a taxable income, whether you're a resident person or you are a non-resident person but carrying on business in Nigeria. A non-resident person is anyone who is not a citizen of Nigeria that earns income from Nigeria, whether through its temporary visits to Nigeria or remotely from its own or our own country, right? That is a non-resident person. So all the expatriates, most of the expatriates, because there are instances that we have Nigerian acting as or being engaged as expatriates. So most of the expatriates may not be residents in Nigeria. And we also have companies that are also non-resident, right? Then taxation on its own side is a process of making that collection. We also talked about the history, what had been the tax system even before the amalgamation of the Northern and the Southern Protectorates in 1914, what happens after then, how do we get to the colonial system, what is the impact of the colonial system on our tax policy even till date. And we were able to also identify that drawing from the colonial system was the Reisman Commission that had impact on our constitution in 1960 that gave rise to the Income Tax Management Act that was later changed to the Personal Income Tax Act, then also the Company Income Tax Act, initially, first of all, enacted in 1961 and subsequently repealed by various tax amendment instruments. Then we made mention of the various sources of our tax law. We made mention of the case laws, which are decided cases in a competent court of law, which is not only a contributor to our tax laws, but could also be used in the defense or administration of various tax cases. And we did emphasize that as tax practitioners, whether in practice or to be, we need to have good understanding of these tax laws so that we can know how best to administer the cases of our clients. Then customary law. Customary law also have a lot of impact on our current tax laws, and we could identify Ishakole, which is what transit into what we call the Personal Income Tax Act today. We made mention of the statute law, which are laws made by the National Assembly or the State Assembly that becomes effective and impactful on anybody who has any taxable income. So all the tax laws that you see, the Personal Income Tax Act, the Value Added Tax Act, the Company Income Tax Act, the Stamp Duty Act, the Capital Gain Tax Act, they are all laws made by the legislative arm of the government. And before they could make these laws, they will have paid attention to not just the case laws, not just the customary laws, but also the Finance Act, the constitutions of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the circulars have been made, budget and pronouncement made by various ministries and agencies, and also opinions of tax experts and content in various tax textbooks that will have impact on our various laws. So these are very important areas that we should know, and we should keep on refining and refreshing our understanding of this, both theoretically and how practicable we can use this knowledge to serving our clients and our various employers. Then we also talk about the structure of the Nigerian tax system being proportional. It is presumed expectedly to be proportional, progressive, and regressive. And unfortunately, we said Nigeria could have done more, will have earned more revenue through tax if what we practice is progressive in nature. But unfortunately, it is very much regressive. That is, the poorer people pay more proportionally or in percentage compared with what the rich system or the rich individuals, taxable individuals pays. Then we say, do we have any benefit that can be derived from tax? Tax is a very important source of revenue generation for us as a country, and that relevance cannot be overemphasized. So that is one of the main benefits that comes with taxation. It is also a very presumably important tool for redistributing incomes and wealth among citizens. But do we have this in practically applicable in Nigeria? Unfortunately, no. But to a very reasonable extent, it is presumed that any amount paid as tax, we should not expect direct proportional benefits from it. So in context or notionally, we can say tax is a tool through which we collect incomes from wherever that is taxable, and this income were then used in providing social amenities that can be used by all. So technically, we can say it is a tool for redistribution of incomes and wealth among citizens or residents of a particular country. Then it could serve as a powerful fiscal weapon to plan and redirect the economy. Yes, what does this mean? Assuming the government is really after developing the tech space or the tech industry, all they need to do, so using this as a tool, is to giving attractive tax holidays to those in the targeted industry, thereby making it attractive for whoever that is interested in going to that industry. So with that, we could say that it's a very wonderful, effective weapon to plan and redirecting the economy, right? Sometimes ago, I think about 2-3 years ago, the federal government come up with a policy which they wanted to use as a way to developing or reconstructing our roads. And they came up with something called the Road Infrastructural Tax Relief, right? Now, what are we saying technically? They are trying to using tax as a fiscal weapon to actually develop a certain sector of the economy. That also could justify or go well with this particular explanation or point. Then the fourth one to serve as a tool to servicing national debt. Of course, everybody knows that the national debt of Nigeria is growing by the day. How is the debt expected to be paid? Or the interest that accrues on this debt, where should this finance come from? One of those sources is taxation. Then the fifth one, taxation serves as a gauge for measuring the level of growth and health of the economic units and economic activity. Recently, the MTN as a company won an award from the FIRS as one of the major contributor in terms of taxes to the Nigerian economy, right? So this is a justification for what we have seen practically. They are using it to see if there could be, or they could have made that huge amount of contribution to the Nigerian economy. It tells you how well that industry is doing, right? Not only MTN won that very award, but Airtel also have a similar award. So tax can be used as a gauge to measuring how the economy of various economic activity is having impact on the nation. I want to be sure that you are still there. Please, if you are, can you say hi? Awesome, awesome. And I want to be sure that you understood all that I've said. If truly you understood what I've been explained thus far, please say yes on the chat box. Odeyemi is raising his hands. Okay, can you quickly make your points known? Odeyemi, you have the floor. Odeyemi, you raise your hand. Do I take that as an error, or we should hold to listening to you? Okay, I think it's an error. All right. That being said, I asked this question at the beginning of this class, that what is the difference between taxes and levy, right? And this is my response to it. They are actually not the same. Tax is a compulsory contribution imposed by the government on incomes and properties, just like I explained earlier on. The benefit of these cannot be traceable to whoever that has paid it, right? But what we call levy is not a function of your income. It is not a function of your income. You have to have met certain characteristics or attributes before you will be open to levy, right? Say, for example, shop tax that the local government collects. It's a levy, not a tax. So if I don't have a shop, I would not pay that levy. The debt permit, it's a form of levy. If somebody did not die, such level will not be paid, right? So while levy is optional, tax is compulsory, right? Both are payable to the government. But another unique difference between levy and taxes is that for taxes you have paid, you are not open to getting proportional benefits from it, right? But if you have paid a levy, you are open to getting a proportional benefit from it. So, say for example, I want to own a street and I went to the local government to register the name of the street as my own name. I will pay for it. So I'm getting direct or proportional benefit from it. That is a levy, not a tax, right? So those are part of the differences between tax and levy. Please take note, they are not the same. The benefit of levy paid can be traced directly to the payer. For example, levy paid such as court fee, other ones is the NDDC fee, ITF. When you make ITF contribution, they are all levies. But taxes are payee, VAT, CIT, and all of that. Irrespective of how much you have paid, you are not open or expected to get the same or proportional benefits from it. Say, for example, again, MTN has just been recently recognized as one of the highest taxpayer in the year under consideration. That is not enough for MTN to agitate that all the roads around all its offices across the nation should be well or should be tarred first. It is not so. You have paid, very good, but the benefits is not directly or is not expected to be directly traceable to you, but a common service or benefit to all. So that is that. Any question? Any question thus far? Any question? Please confirm if there is a question. If there is no question, just indicate no on the chat box so that we can continue. I just want to be sure that everybody is being carried along. Okay, we are almost there. Please confirm if you can see my screen. Confirm if you can see my screen. Say yes if you can see the screen. Awesome. All right. So what are the essential things that is expected to be seen in a very good tax system? We will now benchmark this, whether we actually have these features in Nigeria. A good tax system should be designed in such a way that it makes payments of tax seamless and easy for those who bears the burden to pay. Adam Smith in 1977 introduced a canon of taxation that every tax system must possess. So what are these canons? One is the canon of equity. It is expected that irrespective of what you earn and how you earn, the amount of tax that you pay must be proportional. That is, equal percentage in proportion to your income should be the basis on which you pay tax. But truly, is that what we have in Nigeria? No. Unfortunately, the rich are made to pay less, while the poor are made to pay more. Then the canon of certainty. This one is talking about whoever that is to pay tax should be sure of the amount to be paid and how that payment is to be estimated. But unfortunately, some of our tax laws are so complicated that a non-tax professional cannot say in explicit terms what should be their proportion of their tax on their income. So once again, our tax system did not only fail the canon of equity, but also fail the canon of certainty. Then the canon of convenience. Unfortunately, across the world, nobody actually wants to pay tax. Nobody wishes to pay tax. So one could argue that all the tax system across the world will probably fail this canon. But convenience, what are we saying? We are saying that tax that has been accounted or estimated should be made to be paid when it is most convenient and comfortable to the taxpayer. So when can we say is most convenient? And when can we say is more comfortable? No rational person wants to pay tax. So that is why I submit that this canon of convenience across the world, every tax system will fail it. However, for ease of management, those who are open to paying payee, you should not force them to pay the payee when they have not earned the income. Otherwise, this canon of convenience will have been failed. So it is because of this canon of convenience that employers who have in their employment employees are expected to deduct the payee before they pay to their staff the net. Otherwise, they will be made responsible. The government is trying to fine-tune that tax system to meeting this canon of convenience. Then canon of simplicity. This one is talking about that our tax law should not be too ambiguous. You don't need to be in the court of law before you can understand what the true intent or the literary intent of what the tax law should be. So our law should be made in a way that it is not only simple to read, but also ease of understanding. Then canon of productivity. This canon of productivity is talking about our tax system should not be counterproductive. It should not be counterproductive. The cost of administering that tax should not be more than what actually comes from it. And the taxes collected should also not actually frustrate business. Then the canon of flexibility and stability. Our tax system is expected to not only be very consistent, but flexible to needful changes. For example, during the COVID system, everybody knows that the ability to earn income, as it has always been, were actually impaired. So it is expected that our various tax administration should sweep into action and make requisite adjustments that will encourage this canon of flexibility during that period. All right, so that's what you are expected to knowing as far as the essential tax system is concerned. And as practitioners, we are not only expected to have an understanding of this, but apply this when we are privileged to having engagements with the various legislators, or there is a podium for us to contributing a possible amendment to our tax law. Look insightfully within these features and make requisite contributions. I'm sure everybody can hear me. Razak is saying he's having challenge in being able to hear. Please confirm yes if you can hear me very well. Okay, so Razak, you might need to check your network. All right, so we are almost there. The next one is the types of tax. Basically, our tax is classified into two, direct and indirect. What are those things that we call direct tax? Direct tax is a form of tax that the payer actually bear the burden, right? You feel that impact that you're actually paying something. So examples are the personal income tax, capital gain tax, company income tax, petroleum profit tax, and possibly the stamp duty. Then indirect tax are those taxes that are transferable. It is only bared by the final consumer. So it's not the payer or the immediate payer that actually bear the immediate burden. The burden is actually transferable. So they are usually consumption taxes. So these are taxes on consumption of goods and services, and the burden of such tax does not necessarily fall on the taxpayer. A typical and a very good example of this is the value added tax and the custom and excise duties. Then we also talk about the multiple tax. Multiple tax means a taxpayer being subjected to more than one form of tax on the same income. And that occurs very, very often in Nigeria. Multiple tax occur when various and similar types of tax are imposed on the taxpayer by different tiers of government. Tax authority at the federal and the state and the local government most definitely or most often collect and reassess each person to the same form of tax. So when we said that Lagos state government was actually challenged in court on the consumption tax, the reasons for the challenge was because that consumption tax was exactly interpreted to be the same as value-added tax. So why is the federal collecting the value-added tax? And the state is also proposing to collecting that same form of tax with a disguise of a different name. So that's what we are talking about when we mean multiple tax. In Nigeria, one of the major players of multiple tax are the local governments. States also fall victim of this, but mostly it is common with the local government. So these are some of the examples of taxes you actually pay for again to the local government. Entertainment tax, road tax, loading and offloading fee, refuse collection tax, permits for closure of streets, market tax, and levy. These are all forms of taxes that ordinarily, for you haven't paid your payee, you don't need to suffer this form of taxes again. For you haven't paid your education tax and your income tax, you don't have to suffer this form of taxes again. So these are seen as unnecessary duplication or multiplicity of tax within our tax system. I think the last one that we have here is a cause of our tax of multiple tax system. One is lack of sufficient funding. That is the excuse that the various arms of the government has put forward. They claim that, oh, they don't have enough money, so there is no how they will get this tax. The necessary money to fund their processes. Therefore, they have to duplicate, come under the disguise of different names as a way to collecting more or different form of taxes, or another form of taxes in a different, the same form of taxes in a different way. Then second reason is lack of coordination among various tiers of government. You will see the federal government has made a tax enactment. The state government too is going behind to making the same form of enactment. A typical example is what happens in Rivers State during the regime of Amechi, when there is what we call development levy that is expected to be paid by everyone who is in a gainful employment. He came about again and say he made another social contribution levy, right? It's unnecessary multiplicity of levy or taxes, and that should be discouraged. Then another reason why that give rise to multiplicity of taxes is ignorance of the relevant provisions of the tax law. That is why as professional, you need to know the content, the intent of every of the tax law. If you don't have this understanding, you will not only be guilty or victim of this multiplicity of taxes, but you will also expose your clients to paying so many times what ordinarily they should have avoided. Then the fourth one is unwillingness to challenging the government in courts. Very many people feel that government should not be challenged in courts. So when they see that there are duplications of these taxes, instead of also come and challenge them in courts, we don't. So unwillingness to challenging government in courts could also contribute to multiplicity of tax. Then the next one is state government intentionally depriving the local government of fund that is due to them. But with the recent enactment made by the National Assembly, this is now a thing of history. Local government would then have, going forward, have access to fund due to them directly from the federal government. But before now, this has always been one of the reasons why we have various assaults, harassment from the local government tax authorities or local government tax officials harassing and assaulting people, forcing out from them what ordinarily had been paid to the relevant superior tax authority. So that's where we will be drawing the curtain today. You will observe that in our tax section, in our audit section, and in our financial reporting section, in this very first class, it was 70% theoretical. So that is just to lay the foundation of what you will be and what we'll be considering in the next 11 weeks. So I will urge you to be very prepared for the next episode that will be coming next weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in the next 11 weeks. It's promised to be very enlightening. There are very subsequent sections of these that will be practical inclined. So I will expect you not only be with your phone, be with your system, because some workings might need to be done. We share the working materials, and you also need to jot relevant notes. And please, don't drop the learning. Even after the class must have ended, the relevant material that have been cited for reference, please, let's take our time to revise them and come up with constructive questions or contributions that will further strengthen the understanding of everyone and yourself in particular of what you have learned. And please, our major aim is we want to rekindle the reputation that our profession should earn. It is our joy that we should see, and the general public should see, the requisite skill in would-be accountants. That is the primary reason why we have been doing this. Please help us to accomplish this. It will be a joy to see that those who are looking for jobs, drawing from the insight that we have from this session and the subsequent section, will be able to go to their next interview and surpass the expectations of their employers. Those in their current employment, by reason of the insights that you have from this session, you will be a better value addition to your employer. And those operating in various capacity as auditors, maybe managing their own business, will also be able to render value addition service to their various clients. I wish you all the best, but before we run it up, please, I want to know whether there is any question from anybody. Any question? Any question? Somebody just asked that I hope the slides will be shared for reference. Of course, for coordination, that is why we ask of your email, your name, and your phone number. For coordination, at the end of every week, at the end of every week, that is after today now, not later than tomorrow, Amina, my colleague, will send the slides and the relevant material to everybody's mail. Please don't just receive this mail and not make reference to them. Please review them. Should you have questions on relating to this or other areas of your job, be free to reach out to us. I will be glad to be of value addition service. Any question? Any question? Please tell as many as possible. Our target is also that we want to be able to put the name KCP on the lips of as many people as minimum of 5,000 before the end of the year. Help us to achieve this goal. How can you do it? Please like us on our various social media page and tell objectively. Don't say what you did not hear and don't say what you did not perceive. Don't say what you did not experience. Tell about what you have actually learned about this on the various social media. We are not just seeking cheap popularity, but we want in our next episode, in our next mentorship section, we want as many people to subscribe to this. And I hope with you on our side, we'll be able to accomplish this. God bless you. If there is no question, I would love to draw the curtain on this particular note. Any question? For those who are not shy, you can enable your mic and ask your question, if you have.
Good evening, sir, and thanks for this beautiful and amazing opportunity. Now, for this particular mentorship session, have we drawn curtain to the number of people that can attend this, or we can still invite more people to share insights or to learn from these beautiful insights that you share with us?
Okay, initially, we want to be able to control what people will learn. We want people who actually start with us and end with us. Do you understand? So that is why we are actually drawing curtain, because we don't want people, we have structured the syllabus in such a way that the learning is expected to be sequential. So that is why after this week, we may not admit anybody. But of course, you can tell people about what we have learned, right? And let them watch out for the next episode. You can also take time out to actually teach them what you have learned, so that you two can actually make impact in their own life. But after this as we speak now, we may not admit anybody again. Reason being that we don't want anybody in our subsequent wherever who has not participated in this weekend class to now be drawing us back. We've structured the syllabus in such a way that what you need to learn next week is actually built on what you have learned this week. Idris, I hope I am able to answer your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah. But that does not mean you should not tell people about us. Let them know, so that when next we put up this publicity, they will be able to benefit. Then, aside this particular structured mentorship program, we still do occasional general talk on various topical issues that will be applicable to everybody. But this mentorship program, we want to be able to monitor how many people joined the session, and at the end of the session, how were they before the session, and how are they in terms of competence and know-how after the session. So for us to be able to coordinate and measure that, we need to have some rule around the membership. Okay, for those who have attended at least today, who have not been on the platform, please chat up Amina. Amina will be able, she is a program coordinator. She will add them to the platform. But please, I don't need you to lie. You should not lie. If you know honestly that you have joined today or you participated yesterday, please communicate with Amina. She has the record. She'll be able to add. Then another important fact is for us to have control of our time, so that we can complete as much as necessary within the time limit. Please let our 6 o'clock be our 6 o'clock, so that at the appropriate time designated for this particular, for each session, we can complete within the time limit. All right. In the absence of any other question, I wish you all the best. Please take your time to start reviewing about all the topical issues we have discussed about today. Okay, so because of what I'm seeing on the chat box now, if you know you are here today and you are not on the chat, I mean on the WhatsApp group, can you provide your details now? Provide your name and your phone number with your email. Please provide your name, your phone number, and your email. There, your phone number must be the WhatsApp enabled number. Amina is on this group now. I mean, it's on this podium now. She can actually pick those who truly and honestly know that they are not part. I mean, they have not been added, so that she can pick them and add them appropriately. All right, that being said, I want to say a big thank you to everyone. And we hope that you make the best of the opportunity you have. And when you also are in a position to help others, please replicate these kind gestures. This is one of the few ways we can make a better Nigeria. I wish you all the best and enjoy the remaining of the holiday. Don't forget, always revise all that we have thought or we have spoken about. The materials will be shared to you as soon as possible, but please make the best of it. And should you have any challenge in the course of your work or something relating to what we have discussed, feel free to bring up the issue on the WhatsApp group or chat me directly. I will be glad to give you needful guidance. More importantly, in all our subsequent sections, be here on time and make sure you don't miss any of our sections. Make sure you don't miss any of our sections. All right, good night, everyone. This is where we are drawing the curtain. Good night. The recorded sessions will be shared too. It's only yesterday, due to some technical issue, we could not record. But the first class was recorded, and today's class too was also recorded. So for all the classes we've had, you will have the slides, and you will also have the video for your future reference, except that of the audit class. But we promise that our subsequent classes, they will all be recorded, all things being equal.